So you have a dream about getting your comic, your indie produced local comic, into a comic shop to sell. Is that achievable? Is it even a good idea? Let's go through it together. Hey there, this is Perch, and let's say you've made an indie comic and you want to put it in a store because one of your dreams is to see your creation in a comic store, and that's very cool. I get it. I think that's a dream of a lot of people who've gone to their comic shops, direct market. They see they see the piles of the stacks of comics there, and they kind of have a dream of having their comic in there with all the others. It's a very normal, common dream. A lot of collectors, a lot of people who read comics, and it can be done. Is it easy? Well, no, it's not easy. You can't just walk into a store with a handful of comics, hand it to the shop owner, and say, here, sell these. It won't be that simple. And also, at the beginning, I said, is it even a good idea? Well, for that, I think it depends on the person. So it's kind of a question you have to ask yourself. Why do you want to get your comic into the comic shop? Is it because you want to just make some money? Well, unless you have a full distribution model, mapped out for yourself, you're just an independent guy trying to take their comics to kind of local comic shops around your area. That's You're not going to make a lot of money that way. You'll make some, but you're not going to make really much money at all that way. If your dream is to get your comic into every single comic shop across the country, well, now you're talking a distribution channel and setting that up. And you can definitely make money doing this, but you have to be prepared for a long haul. It's not going to be quick. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs in that process, and not everything will work out like you hope. Um, and I should say at this point, there's not a world where you can just like obtain the email address of every shop owner. People have asked me this before, saying, "Hey, you're in a bunch of retailer groups. Can you just give me the email of all the retailers, and I'll send out this big blast email to all of them saying, I've got a comic, order it for me. Give me $20. I'll send you 20 copies, and you can mark them up." That doesn't work either. It's not going to, first of all, very few retailers will respond to that approach. As an independent unknown guy, you're going to be seen as just spam, and it won't work. Even if you could collect all the email addresses from everybody, which would be a feat into itself, it won't be successful. So I ask again the question, what is it? Do you want to be in shops? Is it a good idea? Well, here's why it's a good idea for many. You have a title, you have a comic. You would like to get some market feedback. You'd like to see what people think of your comic and kind of get some, be able to see it with your own eyes kind of taking place. And if that's your goal, then getting your comic into a comic shop is a great plan. So now how do you do it? Well, generally speaking, there's two routes. One is you have a relationship with a comic shop already. Maybe you've been a customer several years, who knows? And you start the conversation, hey, if I bring in some comics for you to sell, will you sell them? Now, if you have that existing relationship, you've been a customer for 10 years, and it's not one of the mega stores that's dealing with kind of a lot of different inventory all at once, chances are you'll get a yes. In most cases, you will get a yes. And the key there is not your book and not whatever price point you put to it, not the business model attached to it, none of that. The reason why you're going to get success in that route I just described is because you have a pre-existing relationship. Now, why does that matter? Well, some of it's networking. Some of it's just, there's a friendly face, somebody that's given them money so they know. But the more important piece is reliability. The comic shop knows you and knows you're not going to vanish in, say, 2 weeks. And generally speaking, if the comic shop is going to carry inventory from anyone, they want to have some sense that there's someone behind it, that they're not going to put these comics up on the shelf and, there's a problem or what have you. And they also don't want to go out of pocket for it. So you have to make the comic easy for them to consume. One model that I've seen work is the person drops off the comics and they're kind of on consignment. So if somebody buys the comic, then the comic shop gives the money to the creator, but the comic shop will rarely put out money up front. You'd have to have a really compelling comic. You'd have to have a really strong relationship for the store to say, pay you $10 with the promise of selling for 20. they generally do not like upfront cash investment. They're already doing plenty of that for the stuff they order with Diamond, and having kind of little auxiliary places where they have to put more money out is just not, it complicates their world, and very few will do it. Again, if you have a long relationship, they may, but then it's really banking on your relationship with that shop owner. Another way that I've seen be very successful, and it's crazy, is the idea that you go in and you help. You help either, on Wednesdays, help get the comics out, you help the shop in some way, and then you sell your book. Many of the creators who have kind of stepped up into Marvel took this route. They actually worked in the comic shop. Because they worked there, they were able to bring their own product in fairly easily, and they got some attention and some distribution that way. Now, if you're an indie comic maker and you're hearing all this and you're thinking, well, this is all a bunch of nonsense. I think I just want to do my Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I want to go digital only. It's a path that I see other people doing. It's successful. Yes, you can certainly do that. It's certainly a route and possible to accomplish. However, I would warn, it's still wise to test your product out in a shop. See how the physical copy feels in people's hands. See how does your idea resonate and land. So let's say you do your Indiegogo and you get 500 comics printed for distribution, and you're passing those out. Take 10 of those copies, take them to your local comic shop, see if they'll do something on consignment, see if they'll do something another way, and get your comic out into readers' hands regardless. It's always smart. And plus, for just bragging rights, you can say, my comic was also sold in shops. Even if it was just one or two shops, you still have that ability to say, my comic was not just through crowdfunding, it actually was in shops as well. And you might say, why does that matter? Well, if you're planning to go into the indies, or you're planning to get your book ultimately taken by Vault, or who knows, Antarctic Press, you're going to do that kind of stuff. There's lots of ways you can kind of make that happen. One way that certainly doesn't hurt is to have at least a little bit of in-shop sold experience that you can pass along to the publisher. It just helps. It's one more bullet point on a resume that helps make your book more successful. So again, I think I see lots of people doing Indiegogos right now, lots of little crowdfunded comics. Cool. I would advise you take a couple of those, just a couple of the comics you get over order, and go to a few comic shops, get your stuff on the shelves in the shop. Take some pictures of it there. Just have it as your own memory. It's just a good thing to do. Makes sense for you, bridges the gap, and it will pay off for you with where you go next. The other kind of secret I'd say, if you're going to get your comics sold in the shop, you have to approach a shop owner. I talked a lot about relationship, but how do you build that relationship if you've never been in that store before? Well, going in, presenting yourself in a professional way. Don't go in like you're at a job interview for Burger King. Just go in like, you're trying to do something, relatively just professional. And don't go in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. This is a massive mistake I watch time and time again, is people decide that New Comic Book Day is the best day to pitch their new idea. It is not. It's usually a cluster of customers coming in. Tuesday is also terrible because, generally speaking, you have boxes coming in from Diamond. You got a lot of administrative work. The best, absolute best day to go in is a Thursday or a Friday, earlier on a Friday. Those are good days. The rush is past, the euphoria of the new comics is come and gone, and you can get some things done in that time period. But that's the best way to do it. If you go in during a day where it's a rush, you're most likely to get a no just on principle, just from the standpoint of, people can't take this, and they can't take this disturbance. They've got other things to worry about, and they're not going to worry about you. So go in at a time that is going to be the best possible window for you to get your idea pitched. Then have your stuff neatly packaged, have business cards with your name, how to get a hold of it, and be prepared to hear no and still say, thank you for your time. No problem. I totally understand. Appreciate it. Here's my card anyway. I'd like to give you this. And on your card, have your name, phone number, email, and also maybe where somebody can go to see your Indiegogo, print that right on the business card, and just be able to say, here. Because the other thing that's happened is a lot is I've watched people go into shops, say, I've got a comic I'd like you to sell. The answer is no, or I'm not really interested at this time. The creator then says, no problem. and they hand a business card to the comic shop with their information on it that looks relatively professional with a website. The comic shop owner, who doesn't get a lot of business cards, generally intrigued, will go to some of those links. And if you have a quality product, you pitched it well, in particular, if you link to that Indiegogo or Kickstarter, a lot of comic shops are somewhat ignorant to what that even is. That's not in their main vocabulary. And if they go to your Kickstarter and see that you raised, $20,000 even, or whatever it happens to be, $5,000, $20,000, $60,000, if you've raised that kind of money for your comic, the comic shop owner is highly likely to then give you a call. And I've watched tons of people leave the business card thinking they had a no, only to get a call the next day or the day after, because the comic shop owner realized it's a quality product, it's by somebody who's standing by and serious, and it's worth taking that attempt. Again, in a lot of cases with your indie books, it's hard to get the comic shop owner to hand over cash prior to a sale. If they do, they're going to order or pay for a very, very small amount. But once you've done it once you've provided some comics once, and the comic shop owner has sold them, realized the market can be done there, gotten some cash back, then you will find that the second through 50th time will become much easier for them to pay upfront, like they do with Diamond and the other comics. You're an unknown, so go and recognize that you're an unknown and do your best to become not an unknown. That's the secret. That's the secret to how you do it. Do you have any questions or any thoughts on any of this? Leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to ask questions or answer questions. Sorry, I ask questions too, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to go into the various ins and outs and the pitches I've heard that have gone well and the pitches I've heard that have gone poorly, and pass all that information on to you. So you've got a comic, want to get in a comic shop, interested in it, happy to help. Leave a comment below, send me a message. Always love to talk to you. Like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. And most importantly, thanks for listening.